Welcome to the second part of section 3.2 when we're measuring some lengths. So we're going to start on page 64 of our workbook, and we're just going to practice using our ruler again to do different measurements. So I've got a ruler here. Now, of course, on the screen, the ruler is not going to match what an actual ruler is, but I've changed it so the ruler here should match exactly what your ruler will measure in your workbook. So let's go and grab this ruler and remember, put the 0 spot at the beginning and check and see how many centimeters we have here. So there's 1, 2, 3, and this looks like it goes just about to halfway through there. So I think that's going to be 3.5 centimeters. Now, if we're measuring that in millimeters, you could do the conversion because last video we did lots of conversions. So going from centimeters to millimeters, we're going to multiply by 10 to get 35. But let's confirm that on here. You can see there's 10 little ticks for the first centimeter. So 10, 20, 30, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more ticks to get 35 millimeters. All right, let's go to the next one here. Again, we'll put it at right there and see that that's at 2.123. I'm going to say 4. It could be, you could read it as 2.3, but I think it's 2.4 or 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 millimeters. So I'm going to give you a second, push pause in the video to try the next 3 measurements on your own, and then you can come back and see if you agree with my measurements. Okay, so hopefully you've tried those. So let's go and bring this guy up here, and you'll see that it goes, I think, right to the 5 centimeter mark. So that would be 5 centimeters. Multiply by 10 to get 50 millimeters, or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. In here, I have it going just past the 5 and a little bit more. So it looks like half a centimeter more. So I have 5.5 centimeters, or 55 millimeters. And then the last one I have measuring at 1 and right to the half, so 1.5 centimeters, or 15 millimeters. So hopefully your measuring got the same measurement as I did. Now, often we don't have a ruler there to reference all these measurements, and so sometimes it's good to use a personal reference so you can have an idea of how big things are. So for example, here you see that 1 centimeter is roughly how wide your baby finger is. How wide it is about 1 centimeter. You could grab your ruler and put it right up to your baby finger and see that its width is about 1 centimeter. It's not for some of you, it might be smaller or bigger, but that's a good estimate of about how big a centimeter is. 5 centimeters, then, you could say, is 5 baby fingers. I like to think of it as the length of the baby finger. So you measure how long it is from your baby finger knuckle to the end is roughly 5 centimeters. Again, it might be, if you have longer, bigger hands, it might be more than that, but the length of it is about that. 10 centimeters then would be about the length of your middle finger. And again, maybe it's not quite 10 centimeters. If you go from your knuckle and measure out, it might be shorter than 10 centimeters. Mine is just over 10 centimeters, but I have pretty big hands. So about the length of your middle finger then you could imagine is 10 centimeters. Or if you think of that regular ruler, a full ruler is actually 30 centimeters. That's why that's the next one. A full ruler is 30 centimeters. That's kind of standard, those regular rulers. Not the little ones that might fit in your pencil case. That one's usually 10 centimeters. So that's where your 1/3 of the ruler, the one that fits in your pencil case, sometimes is 10 centimeters. A regular one is 30. Maybe the one that fits in your pencil case is smaller or bigger. Maybe it's 15 or 12 centimeters. But one of those regular standard rulers is 30 centimeters. How to estimate a meter? Well, we have something called a meter stick, and you see those in the school, in all the math classrooms and the science classrooms. Those are a meter long and a meter stick. So if you're trying to estimate what 2 meters were, I usually just measure 2 or estimate 2 meter sticks right next to each other. Another good personal reference for 2 meters is that's almost how tall I am. Actually, I'm almost 2 meters. I'm 195 centimeters tall, so I'm just under 2 meters. And so you could think of that as something that's 2 meters tall as well. Um, so all of these references are nice and helpful when you don't necessarily have if you're just trying to imagine how long those are. And if we skip over to page 65, you can collect more personal references to help you measure distances out in the real world. Um, so, for example, you could take your ruler right now and measure your outstretched hands from one end to the other. And again, depending on how um, big your hands are, they might be between 15 and 20, maybe even more than 20. Mine is about 23 centimeters. The outstretched hands. Okay, length of your foot, 20 to 30 or 23 to 30 centimeters. Again, if you put your regular ruler down there, you might put your foot on it and see that a bigger foot might be as long as 30 centimeters. The length of your arm, that could go to 45 to 60 from your armpit out to your fingertips, could be 45 to 60 centimeters, again, depending on how long your arms are. Um, your height, okay, so your height, most people are around 160 to 190. I said I'm 195 centimeters tall. Um, someone who's shorter would be less, of course, but you could measure that yourself or have someone in your house help you measure your height to give you some reference. This is a good one, a football field. So you probably hear of a football field being 100 yards. That's an American football field. A Canadian football field is 110 yards, and which gets you to almost exactly 100 meters. Okay, it's 101 meters. The reason is Canadian football came from rugby, and rugby is exactly 100 meters. Field is 100 meters long, and so but that's a really good estimate regardless. One of our Canadian football fields, our football fields out on the back of the school there, is roughly 100 meters. That's a really great reference. You can also think of the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, and that goes from one end of the field down to the other. So 100 meters there. And then, of course, if you were doing 10 football fields, that'd be 10 times 100, which is 1,000 meters, and 1,000 meters is a kilometer. So if you're trying to imagine how far a kilometer is, think of 10 football fields right after each other, and that's a good estimate of what a kilometer is. All right, so all of these are helpful if you're trying to just measure and use these references just to try and visualize this metric measurement out in space. And so this section finishes with a little check your understanding at the bottom of page 65. How would you use your collection of personal references to estimate the length of the classroom? So I know we're not in the classroom right now, but you can imagine how long the classroom is from the front of the room where the smartboard is back to the back wall. And you can use your references. One might be, if you imagine how many of you were lying down. So if you knew how tall you were, you could imagine how many of those, if you were lying down head to toe all the way along, how many of those it would take. Another good one, how many steps. So you could, if you knew how long your foot was, you could go and pace them out, putting your foot one in front of each other and counting how many steps. And that would give you a really good estimate of how many, if you knew your foot was 30 centimeters long and you took 20 steps to go from one spot to the other, then you could do the math to figure out how long it is. All right. So all of these are really good references, and that just finishes up section 2.3 from our, 2.2. Oh, sorry, 3.2, section 3.2 from our workbook. And you can move on to today's quiz, which, we're not going to have a lot of personal references. So we're just going to talk about some estimations using personal references and then just confirming we know how to use our meter stick. All right, so good luck with that quiz.